The dirt road twisted between lush green fields and gentle hills, breaking the morning silence with the low rumble of Eduardo's old fired engine. Beside him, his wife, Livia, held a crumpled map, trying to decipher the turns that would lead them to Sao Jorge, a remote village deep in the state of Minas Gerais. The GPS had given up miles ago, and cell service was a distant dream. "We should have stayed on the main highway," Livia muttered, adjusting her glasses on the bridge of her nose. Eduardo smiled, trying to keep the mood light. "It's an adventure, love, a cheap inn in a quiet place. We'll rest and forget the stress of the city." The village appeared like an old painting, with adobe houses topped with red clay roofs and weathered wooden windows. A crooked sign by the roadside read, "Welcome to Sao Jorge, 1821. The streets were still, save for the distant crow of a rooster and the rustle of leaves in the wind in the center. The Posada das Flores stood out with its peeling white facade and unkempt garden. A neon sign flickered vacancy. Despite the eerie absence of life, Eduardo parked the car and stepped out, stretching his legs after hours of travel. Livia grabbed her shoulder bag, hesitant. "It looks like nobody lives here," she said, glancing at the dark windows of the nearby houses. Before Eduardo could answer, the inn's door creaked open, and a tall, hunched figure emerged. It was Dona Margarita, the owner, a woman with grey hair pulled into a tight bun and eyes that seemed to hold ancient secrets. "Are you the new guests?" she asked, her voice raspy as if rarely used. "Yes, we booked for 2 days," Eduardo replied, handing over a printed reservation. Margarita studied it for a long moment before nodding. "Follow me. Only a few rooms are available. Room 103 is ready." The interior of the inn was a strange contrast. Polished dark wooden furniture, warm rugs, and a musty smell mixed with lavender. Margarita led them down a narrow hallway, the floorboards groaning under their steps. Room 103 was at the end of the corridor, marked by an oak door with the number etched in rusty iron. When she opened it, a cold draught escaped, as if the room had been sealed for days. The space was simple. A double bed with yellowed sheets, an old dresser, and a window overlooking the backyard, where tall trees blocked out the sunlight. Livia frowned, feeling an unease she couldn't explain. "It feels heavy in here," she whispered. Eduardo chuckled, tossing the backpack onto the bed. "It's just your imagination. Let's unpack and explore the village." Margarita, still standing at the doorway, cleared her throat. "One warning," she said, her eyes fixed on Livia. "Don't tamper with the room too much, and please avoid staying up too late. The silence here is special." Before they could ask anything else, she left, leaving the couple alone. Night fell quickly, and the silence Margarita had mentioned grew oppressive. Eduardo fell sleepily, exhausted from the trip, but Livia stayed up, reading a book by the light of a bedside lamp. That's when she heard the first whisper, a faint sound, almost imperceptible, like someone breathing near her ear. She froze, turning her head, but the room was empty. "Eduardo," she called, nudging him. He grumbled, still asleep. The whisper came again, this time clearer. "Leave, leave." Livia jumped out of bed, her heart pounding, and switched on the main light. Nothing, just the room, still and silent. The next morning, Livia tried to convince Eduardo that something was wrong. "I heard voices last night. It wasn't a dream," she insisted while they had breakfast in the inn's dining room. The only other guest, an elderly woman named Dona Rosa, overheard and approached them. "Room 103 has always been problematic," she said, her voice trembling. "They say something happened there many years ago. No one stays for long. Eduardo rolled his eyes. Just village stories. Let's enjoy the day. But the whispers didn't stop during the day. As they explored Sahorhe, Livia felt a constant weight on her shoulders, as if someone was watching her. The village was unnervingly quiet, with only a few residents on the streets, and those they met avoided eye contact. That afternoon, upon returning to the room, the couple noticed something strange. The dresser had been moved slightly, and a charcoal drawing had appeared on the wall. A faceless human figure with outstretched hands. Who did this? Eduardo asked. Baffled, Livia pointed at the closed window. No one came in here. That night, the whispers turned into a cacophony. Overlapping voices echoed in the room, speaking in urgent tones. Help us. He's here. Leave now. Eduardo woke up to Livia's screams as she pointed to the corner of the room. A dense shadow moved, slowly taking shape. A hunched figure with glowing eyes and skeletal hands. What is that? He shouted, grabbing Livia toward the door. But the doorknob wouldn't turn. They were trapped. Desperate, they pounded on the door until Margarita appeared, visibly irritated. What are you doing? She demanded, opening the door with a master key. Livia, trembling, described what they had seen. Margarita sighed, as if she had expected this. You shouldn't have stayed, she said, leading them to the reception area. There, under the dim light of a lamp, she told them the story. Hundreds of years ago, room 103 was the scene of a terrible crime. A guest, a man named Ezekiel, lost his mind after weeks of isolation. He believed voices were guiding him, and one night he murdered 3 other guests, a couple and their young daughter, before hanging himself in the attic. Since then, they say the spirits of the victims are trapped there, whispering to anyone who enters, begging for help or revenge. I tried to warn you, but you didn't listen. Eduardo's face turned pale. Why rent out that room? Then, Margarita lowered her gaze. It's the only thing that keeps this inn alive. But it always ends badly, Livia asked, and the shadow. What was it? Margarita hesitated. Perhaps Ezekiel, or something he brought with him. Determined to leave, the couple began packing, but the room seemed to resist. The door creaked shut on its own, and the lights flickered. The whispers returned, now louder, calling out names. Maria, Joe, Livia. The shadow reappeared, denser, advancing slowly. Eduardo grabbed a chair to defend them, but the figure passed right through it. Heading straight for Olivia. Help us, the voice whispered, and Livia felt a cold hand touch her shoulder. Panicking, she screamed. What do you want? The shadow stopped, and the voices joined in unison. Free us, break the seal. Livia remembered the dresser being out of place and ran to it, pulling it with all her strength behind it. A loose floorboard revealed a small wooden chest. Inside, there was a yellow diary and a broken medallion. The diary belonged to Ezekiel, filled with notes about rituals and a seal he used to trap the souls. The medallion, according to his writings, was the key. Eduardo smashed the medallion with a hammer, and a piercing scream echoed through the room. The shadow dissolved, and the voices fell silent. The door opened on its own. Margarita, who had rushed to them, froze. You freed them, she asked, frightened. Livia nodded, exhausted. They're no longer trapped. The next morning, the couple left the inn, relieved to have escaped. But as Livia looked back, she saw a small child waving from the window of room 103. The daughter of the murdered couple, now at peace. Sao Jorge remained silent. But something had changed. The villagers whispered about the inn, and Margarita decided to close it, unable to face the emptiness left behind by the spirits. Months later, Livia received an unmarked letter containing a photo of the inn and a note. Thank you. She kept the secret, knowing that room 103 would never be the same again. The end.